Welcome to the 30-Minute Hour. It's the weekly podcast where we discuss business, sports, politics, and whatever's on our mind. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always is Ted Fells. He's the business strategist extraordinaire and all-around good guy.
That's right. So, softball update.
Softball update.
Yeah, I didn't wear the Nats hat today, but softball update. I know you always want to know how softball went for the weekend.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know.
I really am.
So I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
So, yesterday we won again. So we're on a 2-game winning streak.
Wow.
Until we played the doubleheader. The second half of that, we were slaughtered in the second game. But right now we're 2 wins, 4 losses, so we're off to a much better start than we've had in the past. So.
2 and 4.
2 and 4.
Wow. So now, who did you play?
So we played a team called Mastros or something. So I don't know what they did. I don't know if it's. I know there's a restaurant called Mastros, so maybe that's who it is. But we're in the Fairfax County Softball League, and so every week it's a group of guys that get together, play softball in the extreme heat. As if we're crazy, but yeah.
Wow, that had to be hard. It was 100 degrees.
Well, it wasn't that bad because our game started about 6:30, and so the sun had gone down a bit. Right. The issue we had yesterday was lightning, and then we had to keep stopping the game for lightning. But we got 1 win though, so we're excited about that.
Okay, well, congrats on the W.
That's right.
All right. So we're not your everyday podcast, and along those lines, we've got a special guest that's actually sitting in studio. Special guest that's in studio with us. Her name is Pam Bunch. Let's welcome Pam to the 30-Minute Hour. It's exciting.
Good evening. Thank you, 30-Minute Hour host and audience. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to join you this evening.
Okay. So Ted, do you want to share the backstory as to how Pam is sitting with us right now?
Yeah. So my IT company, Nucor Vision, Pam, is in business operations with Nucor Vision and has worked with me for some time. And she notices that we have a podcast going on, and she just continued to ask me over and over again, when would we have her on as a guest? And today she just, interestingly enough, she just felt that she had to stay at work extra late today, and so.
Hang around a little bit.
We'd have her come in and join us. So, I think it gives us a little bit of, maybe a little more diversity within the co-hosts, since we have been kind of having an all-male kind of co-host thing going. So we'll diversify a little bit today.
Okay, and Pam, she really sounds like a natural.
Well,
she's got that media presence, that radio voice.
Thank you very much, Eric.
We look forward to your contributions on the 30-Minute Hour.
And I am delighted to join you and be your special featured guest as often as you'd like to have me.
All right. So normally we have Britton Smith on the show, and Britton, he's the Renaissance man, the man who refuses to be pigeonholed. Well, he's not here, but you never know with him. He could dial in. He could walk through the door and actually be on camera at any minute, or none of those things. We may not even see him on this episode.
He may come quick. We don't know.
So your guess is as good as ours
right.
when it comes to Britain, whether or not he's going to be here.
Here's hoping.
Right, we're all crossing our fingers. But if he does come, you can bet he's going to have an informed opinion and an educated question. All right. So we're not your everyday podcast. We've said that already. You can access us via Facebook by typing in the 30-Minute Hour. You can access us on Instagram by typing in the 30-Minute Hour, and also on YouTube. I know some of you may be watching us regularly. You can go to YouTube and type in the 30-Minute Hour. And we talk about whatever's on our mind. So Ted, Pam, I've got something on my mind.
All right.
Okay.
It's something that it's on my mind. I've been thinking about this thing.
Please share.
Yeah, I know you want me to share. So it's halftime.
Okay.
That's what's on my mind.
Okay.
It's halftime.
Okay.
So Ted, we talk about sports quite often here on the podcast, and I think about the Redskins, right? Right.
Yeah.
And the game starts, and no matter who they're playing, they could be playing the Patriots, the Jets, whoever. They start with a lot of potential.
Absolutely.
Right? Everybody
Exciting.
feels good.
They run through that thing when they come out that tunnel.
Right. Right. The crowd is cheering.
Yeah.
It's a sunny day.
That's right.
They've got the potential to win, even if they're playing the Super Bowl champion. There's that whole rule, any given Sunday, right?
That's right.
They know that if they have a good game, the other team turns the ball over, they have the potential to win.
Absolutely.
They're so focused on the potential. They're excited, right? So then you get to halftime. At halftime, it changes. The focus changes. You shift from potential to performance.
Yeah.
Right?
Reality sets in.
Right.
You look up at that scoreboard. At some point, reality is set
The
in.
reality of your situation has set in at halftime.
That's right.
So if you go in the locker room and you're down by 21, you can't focus on potential any longer.
Yeah.
You've got to look at the reality of your situation because Pam, the scoreboard is telling a story.
That's right. Whether you want to accept it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I know you're looking at me. You're saying, Twigs, why are you talking about this?
I am.
Pretty much. Right. Eric, where in the world is this going?
Where are you going?
Right.
We're riding with you, though, man.
We're on a journey. Just stay with me. We're on a journey.
I'm going someplace with this.
I'm going somewhere, believe it or not.
That's right.
So you think about halftime, right? And this is July.
Uh-huh.
And when it comes to the year, it's halftime.
Yeah.
Right? Many people who listen to us, they started the year with a lot of potential, just like the Redskins. Everything sounds great. They got the pretty little vision board.
All right.
They put it out. They got the little board up in their office.
That's right.
This is going to be the year.
This is the year.
I have a lot of potential.
That's right.
Yeah. I have the potential to start a business. Right? So you have to think about it. If you're listening, it's halftime. So it shifts from potential to performance. So we have to look at the scoreboard.
Okay.
Where do you stand when it comes to starting that business? I mean, you've got a picture of a business on your poster. What's the score?
New Year's resolution. You said you were going to do it this year.
You said you were going to do it this year. Did you do it? It's halftime. Now's a great time to assess where you are. You said you were going to write that book. You got a picture of your book right there. This is going to be the year.
Great title and everything.
Great title, all that.
Yeah.
You're going to be a bestseller. What's the score? What's the score?
Wow. This is all very interesting coming from the author of the 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination.
Oh, wow.
You know, that would fit in very well. And, you know.
Oh, shit.
So there you have it.
A word from our sponsor.
Are you saying that a procrastination book would really come in handy right about now?
I would say that, procrastination would be something that you'd probably want to read at the 50, right, at halftime.
At halftime?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have set that vision board and you've got those goals and you're at halftime and you're not halfway there, it might be time to read 12 Practical Practices to Overcome Procrastination.
Yeah, that'd be a good time to read that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking about I remember I would go to the gym in January, right? On a Saturday.
Oh, it's packed.
Slam packed. I can't get to the treadmill. I can't get to the elliptical. Everybody's on it.
Oh, yeah.
It's packed. So I was in the gym this past Saturday. It wasn't packed.
But Eric, you go to the gym at like 5 in the morning.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
On a Saturday at 5 in the morning, no one's in the gym.
But no, normally I go at 5 a.m. during the week. So
Oh.
Saturday I go a little like 8, 9 in the
Oh,
morning
okay.
where everybody else will be there.
Okay.
But again, what happened? That New Year's resolution, they set a goal, they had this potential,
Fizzled out.
it fizzled out.
Yeah.
I mean, why do we think that is? Why is that so common that people have these great plans at the start of the year. They've got all this potential, things they want to do, but we get to July, I've talked to clients and I said, hey, so how you coming with those goals? What were my goals again? How do we get to this point?
I don't know, Eric. I mean, I think it's easy to put some things down and say these are your goals, right? Where you want to go. You're excited about the goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I think it takes a little more focus on execution than excitement.
Oh.
I would agree.
Wow.
That's tweetable,
That's
right?
good.
That's it, right?
So wait a minute, you have to focus
right.
more on execution and less on excitement?
Less on excitement, right?
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, it's easy to get excited about. So, yes, we're going to win these games until you go out there and you're down by 20.
Right.
Right? Yes, we're going to get out here and we're going to write this book until you got to sit down and do it. I tell people all the time, I think the easiest thing to do in the world is to do nothing.
Right.
Right? It doesn't take much to do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So you can talk about that, but it's when you're going to sit down and really nail, really get yourself structured to get something done. And I think you find that out, right? Early on you're in the gym and you're like, oh, every day you're in there, and then probably by that third week of January, it's like, I don't feel like it.
Right.
Right? Or am I going to start writing this book? Or am I going to get this business going? Because everything seems so overwhelming, just to kind of get started and to keep that momentum going. And I think a lot of times people need those little victories.
Right.
Those little victories are the things that kind of keep them going. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think?
Well, and also, are you setting practical goals for yourself? Are the goals that you're setting, it's easier said than done,
Yes.
but are you setting goals that are attainable? I mean, things that, you can absolutely accomplish. Are you in the right physical state of being to, be a bodybuilder? I mean, you've got to condition yourself.
Right.
Do you have the stamina for the goal that you're setting for yourself? So you have to be realistic with yourself when you are setting these goals. Are these the right goals for you or you? For you. Because I've been challenged with setting some really high goals that they actually did not fit for me.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I mean, there are people that I've talked to and have coached that they haven't exercised in a long time, and now they're trying to run 3 miles a day, 6 days a week. Well, why not just start with running a mile?
Riding a bike.
Right, yeah, just start small. Start small, make it
Walking.
manageable.
Walking.
Right, walking around the block.
Oh, yeah.
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 You have to walk your way up to the gym.
Right.
As opposed to just directly into the gym.
Right, so people get overwhelmed
Yeah.
by how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these are all great points. And one of the things, we're talking about football, like the great coaches, like somebody that comes to mind is Joe Gibbs.
Absolutely.
And Joe Gibbs was great at making halftime adjustments.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched Redskins games where they were losing, they go into halftime and come out at the second half and look like a completely different team.
Yeah.
I was always amazed by that, and I think that's one of the main reasons he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But I don't think that just applies to football.
No.
I think our listeners need to make some halftime adjustments.
Yes. That's a great point.
Yeah, you just have to think about, what happens when something doesn't go as quickly as you thought it would go. What happens when, there's a delay or there's some other things that may happen that may impact, your ability to get something done. How are you going to adjust to that? Because at the end of the day, it's all about that focus, that determination to get those goals achieved, right? And it's going to be some rocky roads in that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I say this all the time. I think people don't factor failure into their success plan. You don't factor and you say, okay, this year I'm going to start working out. But you're going to have that morning where you're just, I'm tired. I'm not getting out of bed. I know that's what I should do. But then you say, okay, I didn't get out of bed, so that means I've fallen off.
I'm done.
I'm done. Right.
Or I overindulge. I'm done.
Right. So you have to factor failure into your success plan. You have to account for the fact you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall short. You're going to have setbacks. But you have to make those halftime adjustments.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you can't do it yourself. Sometimes you need a coach.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan had a coach.
Michael Jordan had a coach.
Kobe Bryant had a coach.
Right. And see, the thing is, you don't have to be bad to get better.
Mm.
Right? Just because you're trying to get better, just because you're getting help doesn't mean you're bad. But it helps to have that outside set of eyes
Absolutely.
to help you. I know quite a few people work out every day because now they have a coach. And for nothing else, they know the coach is meeting them at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not going to have that person sitting there, especially if they're paying them.
Yeah.
If you have money on the line,
Yeah.
you have skin in the game.
Absolutely.
So that could be a halftime adjustment. Find a mentor. Find someone that's done. You want to write a book? Find someone that's written a book already. You know, I think that's the key. We just have to focus on the adjustments. We have to be willing to change our strategy. And I just challenge everyone that's listening to us, everyone that's watching us, to make the halftime adjustments. And if you do, you can shock your potential.
Ah,
Hallelujah.
where'd you get that? Shock your potential.
It's funny you say that, Ted, because that really leads us to our guest. You like how I did that?
Yeah, no. So who's our guest today?
I did a little homework on this episode.
Okay.
All right.
Let's hear it.
So our guest,
Okay.
she is a keynote speaker, a trainer, author. She's a podcast host in the areas of leadership, sales, and the customer experience. She's got over 25 years of experience delivering motivational speeches and training sessions to an international audience. She's been all over the world. She's got a corporate background in leading rapid turnarounds and transforming organizations. She brings a record of success and expertise at the highest levels of global business. And today, she is the CPO.
CPO.
Not a CFO, not a CEO, the CPO,
Okay.
Chief Potential Officer.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. That's
right.
a new one. Okay.
Not your everyday
I
podcast.
like
That's
that.
right.
Chief
Not your
Potential
everyday
Officer.
C-level position.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Of Shock Your Potential, her Philadelphia-based training organization that provides corporations and business leaders with engaging presentations and actionable strategies on leadership, employee development, customer experience, and sales transformation. In addition, she hosts the Shock Your Potential podcast, where she highlights the best in leadership, sales, and customer experiences, available via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast apps. And you can also find her podcast online at shockyourpotentialpodcast.com. Please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour, Michael Sherlock.
Yes.
Michael,
Thank you so much.
Michael.
Yes. We're doing the wave
I like
over
it.
here.
I like hearing the crowd roar.
All right. Well, welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm very happy to be with you guys all tonight.
All right. So the name of your training company is Shock Your Potential. What exactly does that mean? What does it mean to shock your potential?
It's a great question. And Eric, you know, because you've met me, I'm a little shocking in person. Not just because I have a man's name and I'm a woman, but I'm a little colorful, as you probably remember. I tend to have crazy colored hair and really fun, different shoes, but I have always dealt in potential. And my perspective is that every one of us, from an individual, from our personal and our professional standpoint, as well as our businesses, have great potential. And just like you guys have been talking about, it's all what you do with it, because potential means nothing if you don't act upon it, or you don't nurture it, or you don't develop it, you don't push it to its limits. So it's great to say, hey, I have all this potential, but we have to do something with it and continually grow and develop. So I work with organizations to help them enhance and develop everything from their sales force, their leadership team, to the ultimate training potential of their organizations to make them greater today, tomorrow, and in the future. And So when I put this business together and I kept trying to figure out, what am I going to call it? Am I going to just, be my own name as a company? What's it going to be? And I was talking through with somebody about, really what this was about. I said, I'm very shocking as an individual. I deal with serious issues, but I do it in a really fun manner. But it's all about potential. And so they came back and said, well, how about shock your potential? And I went, boo, baby, that's exactly what I'm trying to achieve.
So that's interesting. So, in your experience and working with the people that you work with, what are some of the common things that you see that keeps people from reaching that potential they have?
Great question. I think from a business standpoint, first of all, it's usually a sense of being too actively urgent about getting things done and yet not taking the time to do things right. And what I mean by that is often, especially like, for instance, when you hire new people, the goal is get them up and running quick. But what you really need to be focused on is how do you train them from the beginning? How do you have training that actually matches the goals and the identification of your organization, so that you are pulling people through to truly understand what is the history, what is the reason behind your company, what do you do, how do we do that right, what does it look like when it's done right, and pull people through so that it's easy to say that our employees are our greatest asset, but if we never develop them from a training perspective in the beginning, throughout their career, and as they transition to different levels, then it's just words we're saying and it's not true. And so, from businesses, I try to get them to understand that you can't just bring people on and hope that they're going to help you achieve your goal. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to your business. But from an individual standpoint, I look at people, I get calls all the time from people who say, how do I get to the next level of my career? How do I get to that next level of potential? And probably the biggest gap that exists is the sense of knowing what that is that you want to achieve and then taking systematic steps to get there. So it's really just, again, what you guys were talking about before with the sports analogy. Before you go into a season or before you go into a game, you have all this potential. But at halftime, you can't be talking about potential, especially if you're down 21 points. You need to be talking about strategies. And I want people to look at how they take the steps to really implement those strategies. See, I was listening to you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Good. That's excellent. So just from your experience, I mean, we were talking about the whole New Year's resolution thing. I mean, I'm sure you see that a lot with the people you work with. What are some of the common things that keeps people from hitting the goals and objectives that they want to hit?
More or less, it's just operating off of a hope as a strategy rather than an actual strategy. So, I really want to get promoted. I really want my business to achieve its sales objectives. I really want to gain that next client. Okay, that's great. I want to lose 10 pounds. But I'm not going to lose 10 pounds by wishing that I'm going to lose 10 pounds. It means I have to count my calories. It means I have to work out. It means I have to plan what I'm eating. It means I have to make better choices. So hope is not a strategy. We know, we've heard that, many, many times. But that's the gap between what you want and how or whether you achieve it.
Hope is not a strategy. Yeah, I've heard that as well, but I think it really applies, and I've had to say that to people during different times. So you graduated from Eastern Washington University. So when you were during those days, was that in your original plan to be doing what you're doing right now?
Not at all. I actually started out. I had two different paths that I took during college, and one was a route that was very much psychology based, and the other was teaching. And I started out actually as a teacher. I taught for 1 year after college. That was my degree, was in education. And I was teaching at a time where, in the area that I lived in, where there was actually a reduction in the number of new students going in. And so there were massive layoffs of teachers all over. So, only 1 year in, I wasn't making the cut. And I had to pivot. I had to figure out, well, what do I do with an education degree when I live in a community where there's no teaching positions for me? And that's when I realized that my degree was marketable anywhere, because education, whether it's for kids or adults, is all about getting people excited about learning.
Yep.
And I ended up going a completely different route where I was teaching people. I worked in a nonprofit that dealt with money management, and I was trying to get people interested in how do you get out of debt? You know, how do you make good financial decisions? And if you want to talk about a hard sell, that was that was definitely one of them.
Sure.
But I found at that point that it really, unless you've gone to school to become a doctor or a lawyer or a marine biologist, you know, where that's all you really want to do, any degree you have can be marketable in another position as long as you're looking for the common denominators. You can see what your potential is just based on the passion of what you went after.
So if you could get in your time machine and go back and talk to the 19-year-old Michael Sherlock, what advice would you be giving her?
It was an interesting question because I often ask this same question of my guests, and it makes me think about, you know, of how I answer it today. But at 19, I know that what I really needed to tell Michael Sherlock then was believe in yourself,
Yes.
which is a funny thing because I was very outgoing. I've had a lot of self-confidence in my life, but ultimately, when you said, you know, I graduated from Eastern Washington, I actually started my first 2.5 years of college at a college called Seattle University. And I was admitted there. It's a Jesuit institution. I was admitted and accepted into an honors program there for my first 2 years. And it was an integrated studies program. They only allowed 24 students into it every year. And I got almost a full ride scholarship for 2 years. And I thought I was the stupidest person in that program.
Wow.
And I look back now and think, well, okay, maybe I was. The stupidest out of 24, you know, and 24 that were picked of all the people that were admitted. You know, hundreds and hundreds of people applied. So even if I was the worst of 24,
He was all right.
that's pretty damn good.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And there were times I might have, you know, had that honor, but that's okay. And I wish I could go back and tell her, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be number one. You just have to recognize where you are and what you've done to achieve what you have right now. And I've learned that since then, but I wish I could have her have that sense of peace that I know now.
That's a great point. And very few people stop to celebrate their wins.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I catch like people like Coach, I catch them off guard when I ask them to say, "Hey, tell me your wins from the last week." It's like
Yes.
It's like they're so used to not thinking about what's going well, they don't know what to say.
Absolutely.
I think you bring up a good point. It's critical to believe in yourself and think about the things that are going right. So,
well, you know, one thing I want to add on that also is that, you know, a lot of times in business, you know, people are like, you know, like, okay, I've been in business 20 plus years. Like, oh, wow, 20 plus years of business.
Right.
Wow, look at your website, these different things. And I think what happens is, and I know, Michael, you know I'm going with this, like, they see the things that you've achieved.
right.
And they're like major things to them, right? Because maybe they started a year saying, I want to start a business. And
Right.
they're like, man, by the midpoint, and they, you know, got their business established, got a website going, you know, won a couple contracts or something, they'd be like, hey, I'm good, I can retire. I can die now, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Kill me, I'm good. You know, but for us, we're like, oh yeah, but I didn't. Okay, how much did I? But I didn't get this contract, right? I didn't get this opportunity, and so you're right. You have to step back and really look at this and look at some of the things that you've achieved, and you can say, you know, yeah, I'm sure Michael says, I am somebody sometimes, but you just sit back and just think about this stuff sometimes, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great point is that, you know, where people see you are right now has nothing to do with the journey that got you there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And those are the scars on our back, and those are the days that we doubted, and those were the days that we almost gave up. And those were sometimes the days we did give up. But that's okay as long as we, you know, only gave up for that day and woke up the next morning and said, okay, you know, pick yourself up again. You can do this. You've got this. And that takes perseverance, and that's where talking about, being halfway through this year, it's a great measure point to say, okay, so if you still haven't gotten where you were going, what are you going to do tomorrow morning to get yourself up? You still have a half a year to get there.
Absolutely.
Right.
No, great point.
Yeah, the game isn't over at halftime.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you can still make those adjustments.
Well, it depends on your team.
Well, it depends. Yeah.
Like our team.
Right.
It's like
Well,
just
that's
kind
true,
of
too.
like yeah.
If it's the Redskins, the game's over.
Yeah,
but
game's over.
that's a whole other show, Michael.
other
We
show.
won't even go there. So talking about like your story and your journey. So you ended up becoming vice president of U.S. sales for two multinational medical device companies.
Oof.
Mm-hmm.
So I
did.
so you went from what you were talking about earlier, being in education and kind of transitioning. So how did you go from where you were to that point? What was that like?
I spent almost all of my career in sales in some form, sales and sales management, and a lot of it in medical. But along the way, I actually have had my own business 3 other times. And the first time that I had a business similar to what I'm doing today, it was really too early for me. My vision was too limited. I wanted to do what I'm doing today, but I saw my world as very small. At that point in time, I lived on the other side of the country. I lived in Spokane, Washington, which is not a major anything, and I only saw my world as in that little corner of the world, and so that business didn't succeed, and that's okay because I learned a lot from that. So as I went through and I had different jobs, then a little bit later I started another company where I did consulting and sales consulting for medical clients. And I was very successful with that, but not as great as I could be. And another opportunity just presented itself in front of me. So out of the blue, I had this opportunity to take over a sales role for a very large medical device company and ended up running the U.S. stores for one of these businesses and then eventually 1/4 of the entire U.S., which had multiple businesses. And so I was running, I was responsible for, 500 people and, upwards of $100 million. And it was very different. It was a whole new ball game for me to lead at that level. And it tested my leadership skills and it tested my sales skills. And I had to understand parts of business that I hadn't ever had to deal with before. And it was scary at times. It was wonderfully exciting at times. But when it finally came together, I realized, boy, everything else that I've done before now has led me up to this. I didn't get handed this just because I'm a nice person or somebody likes me. I got handed this opportunity because I deserved it and I earned it. And that was a new level, thinking back to what I tell that 19-year-old Michael, is that sense of finally going, okay, I got this. I got this. And it pulls through with me today. So when I talk about potential with the businesses that I work with, I challenge them to say, okay, you're going to have to look at yourself in a mirror now in a different way. And don't worry about whether some of those things you see in the mirror don't look perfect. Let's fix them. The whole point of looking in the mirror is to find the areas where you're not right and figure out what ones are critical to business success and be confident enough to say, hey, let's work on that now. And when you do that as an individual or a business, then you start to achieve much greater heights than you could because your eyes are open, your awareness is engaged, and you're willing to learn, develop, and grow.
Wow.
So when
Wow, very deep.
Yeah. I mean, we're
Such a huge undertaking.
Yeah, our heads are over here shaking. Our heads over here shaking like she is somebody.
Thank you. I am. You like me. Really.
That's right. We're your fans.
Exactly.
So let me ask you, when you're managing these organizations of like 500 people, like, one of the biggest challenges with managing people is people, right? Can you tell us about some of those challenges that you've dealt with in the past, some of your greatest challenges and how you've you're able to address those challenges?
It's such a great question because I've always
Thank
said
you.
that the worst part about leading people is people.
Right.
And, because at the end of the day, we're all human
Yes.
and we're dealing with human beings. So we're humans, we're dealing with human beings. Sometimes they don't act like human beings, but you have to figure out how and where to meet them where they are and help get them where you need them to be. And that's really actually why I wrote my first book, which is called Tell Me More, How to Ask the Right Questions and Get the Most Out of Your Employees. And I've got 2 more books coming out this year, one in September and one at the end of the year. And all my books have been written like novels. So I want to tell my leadership and sales stories through stories because they're really reflections of me and some of the challenges that I've had. And being a very successful independent contributor all my sales career, as you lead people, when you've been successful on your own, it's a huge challenge to get other people to be successful when you're not responsible for it directly. And there's a sense of wanting to do things on your own because it's easier to do it. And I really had to learn myself at a higher level to develop the people under me so that they could make more decisions on their own and that they had confidence that I could count on them and they could count on themselves. So I always worked through, there's where the psychology came back. I call it a little bit of psychological manipulation, but it doesn't mean that's a bad thing. I try to always get my team to think through their own problems, talk through the issues with them, and come up with their own solutions, and give them that sense of empowerment when they're on the right track. Help guide them when they're not on the right track, but give them that sense of empowerment to say, that's a great idea. I think that's exactly how I would handle it. Why don't you go execute that? Tell me how it works, and if you have any issues, let me know. I'm right here for you. And the more I could trust my team and the more they trusted themselves, the greater success we had. And we started to have incredible successes. Within the one business, the first business that I had, that business in its 14-year history had never once achieved their sales goal for the year of $56 million, never once. And we got it within the first 13 months.
Amazing.
Wow.
And it was something to behold. They always kind of saw it like, well, hey, we have this goal instead of this is our obligation to the organization. We have to hit this. We have to win this game. And once I got them with that mindset, then there was really no stopping us.
So now I was looking at one of your videos, and you had this awesome metaphor that kind of ties in with something you said already. The metaphor you used, the metaphor of the suitcase, unpacking the suitcase. You want to talk about that for just a minute?
Yeah, what I found is that people would come to me all the time with problems, and they go, Michael, I have this issue. Michael, what should I do about this? Michael, how about this? And initially, I always wanted to solve them, get that problem solved, and move to the next thing. But instead, I started asking them, well, tell me more about the issue. Tell me what you're concerned about. Tell me where you think you can go wrong with it. What are things are getting in your way? And as I started to ask various variations of tell me more, people, it's like when you sit on a suitcase that is so overly packed that you have to sit on it to try and zip it up. That's how a lot of problems are for people. They see it as so many pieces that they've just shoved together and they're trying to solve it all at once. But you have to open up that suitcase and take all the pieces out and put them out on the floor, and then you have to make some decisions. With all that's spread out, do you need to leave some of it at home? Do you need to repack it nicer so it goes in the suitcase? Do you need to get a second suitcase? Do you need a bigger suitcase? And you have lots of options, but only until you see all the pieces laid out in front of you can you often say, oh, now I see which direction I should go. And so as I think about that analogy of the suitcase being so full that it's often overwhelming to us, just take all the pieces out, look at it, and most of the time the answer is going to come very clearly defined to you. And that's when my team would go, oh, I know what we should do. We should do this. And 90% of the time they were right. And the other 10%, when they were still off on their solution, I could say, well, tell me why you think that's a solution that'll work. And if they still don't get it, I still can say, I got to tell you, I have some concerns about the solution you're proposing. Let me tell you why. And then I can give them help and guidance. But if 90% of the time they come up with it on their own, why wouldn't I allow them that kind of win and to have them feel like I've validated them? And that's when their confidence rises. That's when their output and the results increase. That's when you start to have some really great leadership traction. But it takes time, attention, and it takes guts.
It sure does, and I think that's a powerful metaphor of the suitcase. And when I saw that, I said, "Oh, I definitely have to ask Michael about this because that's really powerful." So one of the things, I had a time where I led 500 people. So when I first started, my problem was someone would handle a situation, but it was different from how I would have handled it. So I was a little harsh with them. Right.
What are you doing?
Right. What were you thinking? Those types of things.
What's wrong? You're
Right. And so what happened was from now on, they would come back to me with every little thing because I yelled at them the previous time. Do you find that to kind of be a common thing with leaders you work with?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of it has to do with confidence. And that is, my first question to you would be, in those cases, did they still get the outcome you were looking for? Because if the answer is yes, then you have to look in the mirror and say, all right, so how can I be comfortable the fact that they got there a different way? And, how can I help myself with that? If the results are not positive over and over again, then there's a different strategy that needs to be put in place, and that is, helping to train and coach them better. But ultimately, what I found to the same point, Eric, is that I was trying to solve so many problems because I knew I could trust myself and my answers.
Yes.
But I couldn't carry all that on my back and do the rest of my job. I couldn't do at one point I had 32 managers who were reporting to me. I could not do 32 of their jobs and do mine. There was no way. And so it was exhaustion that finally got me to start operating differently. And once I did that, I still had to trust myself. I had to trust them. And I had to let them screw up because they were going to make mistakes. But I always used to say, okay, you know what? We can make a lot of mistakes. There's only 3 mistakes, but if you make one of these or all of them, we're in deep trouble. So ready? And they'd go, they get ready to write it down. Okay, these are the 3 things. You cannot screw these up. And everybody's, on the edge of their seat. Okay, so nothing burns down.
Right.
Nothing burns down. Nobody dies, and nobody goes to jail. Because if you don't have those things happen, 1, 2, or all of them, then we can make mistakes. Yeah. As long as you're okay with the fact that come back and tell me it didn't work or tell me it was mistaken. Let's talk through it. I don't want you to be afraid to tell me it didn't work. I want us to be able to talk about it in a way that helps you to understand how to get it better the next time. And that takes guts from a leader to take their own ego out of it and let it be about that individual really moving to the next level.
And you're absolutely right, because in my instances, we would get to the objective. It just wasn't my way. And yeah. So later I would get to the point where I'd say, hey, thank you for handling that. Now here's how I would have handled it in the future, just to be aware. But I definitely could have used your book in those days for sure.
It's hard. It's hard to do at times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just in things like even like emails, right? I've had employees that they include me on an email,
right?
And I just have to look at that after a while, and I just say, you should have said this, or you said too much of this, and then I just had to get to a point to just be like, okay, this person right here they need 5 paragraphs to say it. I mean, they did get the point across. Good morning. Did you walk the dog? The weather was so great. How was the picnic?
Right.
You seen any good movies lately? I'll be like, oh, can you just look? But
and by the way, you guys suck.
That's right. That's right. But they got it. But they had to do it. They had to do it their way.
Right.
And you just kind of just kind of sit back and be like, okay, they did get to the point, and
yep.
They achieved the objective. Just two pages later.
And I think there's a great opportunity for coaching there, because those are important things that if you're taking 2 pages to get to the point, that's something you want to coach them on. But on the flip side too, I used to tell my team, look, I only want you to copy me on an email at two times. One is when you really need my help and you're using me because you need me to help be actionable on something. And the second is you need me to be the heavy. So you're CCing me, so whoever you're writing that to knows that I've been copied, but please just give me a text before that says, hey, I'm sending you an email where I need you to be the heavy, because then I can delete it. And I don't have to read it, because I don't have time to be on everything being CC'd just because you think I need to do it to feel important, because I don't. I have enough emails on my own. And as we got through that, people got a lot better and used me accordingly, used me when they needed me. But then I knew that if an email came through, then it was something that I needed to keep my eyes on.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that is excellent.
Pam, you saying that's fantastic because you
because I've been on
because you work for me and you're like,
yes, and I've experienced being an overshare and involving Ted. And, and he's like, did I need to know that? And did you have to say all of that before you got to the point? Then I have received rewards for when I got straight to the point and I was very direct.
Good
and he was like,
job.
oh my God, I can't believe that you actually made that point in 3 sentences.
That's right.
Gone.
Excellent.
So
She's healed. She's healed.
but I did want to ask you, do you find yourself, is it more challenging to mentor the leader or the team?
Well, boy, that's a good question. I think it all depends on the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
I work with so many different groups. Right now, I've been asked to develop a year-long leadership program for a national association where they have an emerging leaders group. And there's some really interesting dynamics in this group because many of them are either family members in family-run business or non-family members in family-run businesses. And there's so many other dynamics that often you have to really address the leadership techniques of those people in the top positions. And you also have to help everybody else understand how to communicate together better. Because just because you're not at the top of the food chain doesn't mean that you can't impact the outcome, but it's a lot more challenging, it's a lot more difficult, and a lot more nerve-wracking. And there's balance. But I think ultimately people who want to be helped are open to coaching in that area. The people that believe that their strategy is right and they believe that that they don't need any help are often the ones that are creating some hostile environments. And ultimately, I believe in the positive and productive and profitable workplace, where if we're doing the right things and we're operating with the right strategies, then everybody feels empowered enough to contribute in a positive way and help make changes when it's off kilter. But it's hard, and I know people are fearful. I've been in environments where I was fearful of leadership that might not have been aligned to my method of communication, and we've all been there at different times. The question is, can you help create change? And most of the time, the groups and companies that come to me, they want that change. They just need some help getting there.
So Michael, let me ask you this. So let's say this is your first day on the job as a executive, and you're coming in. Walk us through what that looks like. What you would do when you first walk into that new company, that new position, that new culture. Maybe you may tell us some of the things that you did before that, and then like what does the first 30 days look like?
Well, for me, it's always been about asking a lot of questions. And it's a great question right now because I just returned home from Singapore and Bangkok, where I have been working with a client in the last year as we've been determining actually whether or not we wanted to work together on a larger scale. And they have asked me to create their global sales strategy for their app. It's a learning-based app. And finally I said, okay, let's do this, but I need to come there. I need to meet your team, and I need to understand you. Well, the old Michael probably 15 years ago would have gone in there with PowerPoints ready to go and an agenda already, planned out. And the Michael of today goes in and says, tell me about why you started this company. Tell me about who the shareholders are.
Hmm.
Tell me about the people that work for you now. Tell me about their strengths. Tell me about their challenges. How are they contributing to the vision? What is your vision? Where are you going? And many of those questions, as we went through them, had good answers, and some were, I don't know. And that's okay, because if they don't know, then we can work on it together. But for me, spending as much time as possible asking questions helps give clarity, because otherwise you can still have your own agenda and know what you want and need to accomplish. But until you understand the dynamics of the people that are involved and where their heads are, you're setting yourself up for maybe not always failure, but definitely for resistance. And resistance is the greatest challenge in trying to drive to new heights. Because if people feel like they've got to dig their heels in to protect their vision, their mission, their space, their position, then you're going to be running uphill the whole time. But the more questions you ask, you can use people's own words to say, well, now remember, you told me that your greatest success so far in this role has been XYZ. Let's expand upon that, and let me tell you how that may fit into my strategy. And then you gain shareholders along the way. You don't just lead people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because it's so easy to put people on the defensive when you start telling them things, as opposed to just, like you said, just leading with questions. And even if it's something, I found, even if it's something that someone's doing wrong, if you lead with questions, they'll tell you what they're doing wrong.
Exactly.
They'll tell them themselves, and I think they even feel more accountable when they say they're doing it wrong, as opposed to when you tell them.
They absolutely do. They absolutely do. You're absolutely right. And then they'll go, oh, I know I shouldn't have done that, or I know that's probably not the right way. And then you can say, well, I agree with that. So let's talk about what else we can do with that. Now you're on their side. You're not attacking.
Absolutely.
So what about a situation where you walk into and there's maybe a lot of silos
Great
in
question,
place?
Ken. Great question, Mr. Fells.
What are you trying to say? You're trying to right. Watch yourself. It'll be performance review time real soon.
I'm sitting in shallow waters next to my CEO.
Wow.
No, but sometimes that happens. You have people that have, they like to hoard information, and they're concerned about, I guess whatever that edge is that they think that they have within an organization, and how do you get those walls to come down and just be able to create true collaboration that's mission focused? How'd you like that?
Well, two things. Number one, goes back to questions again, because you have to figure out where the real silos are formed, because sometimes they're formed by individuals, sometimes they're formed by company culture, and sometimes they're formed actually by physical separateness. So if you look at how businesses are laid out, for instance, there's often a huge divide between marketing and operations. And that is a huge gap, and I had this many, many times. And so I'd have my sales managers always complaining about marketing. I can't believe they put out this ad. I can't believe they did that. They didn't even tell us, blah, blah, blah. And so I'd ask a lot of questions, get them to, explain where some of the gaps were. And then I'd come back and say, what do you need them to know about your organization? What do you need them to know about your job? And then you do the reverse until you can start having awareness between the two of what each other's goals are and what the issues are. And I remember one meeting I said to one of my sales managers who's a brilliant person who has built a business. He's a fantastic person. And I looked at him and I said, do you really think that anybody in that marketing department got up today just saying, I want to screw these people over today? And he's like, probably not. I said, but that's how you're reacting, is that you think they're out to get you. But I am going to bet money that not one of them got up today with the full intention of screwing you and your business over. Yeah. So how do we bridge this gap? And he said, what if I went in and spent a day with them? And what if my person who's responsible for creating ads for my division came and spent a couple days in my region? I said, that's brilliant. Let's do that. Let's start to cross over. And we started to do that many different ways. And for instance, we did that with recruiting. So I'd have the recruiters spend a day with each of the managers so that they would know what the managers faced. And I would have them, when I would do phone screens for any candidates, I would have everyone in the recruiting team listen to my phone screens so they'd know what kind of questions I ask, what I'm looking for, what I'm trying to get at, so that we could merge what we were doing together, and we weren't operating as if here's my marching orders and this is, I'm either going to do this my way or not. We started to see what other groups needed to do in their jobs or how they viewed it. And once we found areas that we could bridge, then we started to have better communication and higher effectiveness.
So let me ask you this: when you are trying to identify new candidates to work within your organization, like what are some of the characteristics that you look for when you're trying to hire? Because I know that's a challenging thing, and I'm just trying to give me some free coaching here.
Sure. You know,
Actually,
no matter what, I always say you have to have the right person in the right position doing the right things.
Right.
And number one, you have to have the right person. Without the right person, no matter what else you do, it doesn't matter. But to me, that right person is somebody who is self-aware, that they are humble, they're driven. I want them to be driven, but that they want to be a continual learner. Because if they're not, if they're coming in and telling me how great they are and what all they've accomplished and how they're going to replicate that here, then I know that they're not willing to learn what we're doing here, wherever here is. And so that comes down to the right person. Now, the other two parts is, do I have the right person in the right position doing the right things? If I have the right person, but they're not in the right position or doing the right things, that's my fault as a leader. I need to fix that. I owe it to them to fix that. But ultimately, if I don't have the right person, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what position they're in, what they're doing. It has to be somebody, in my viewpoint, that is willing to learn, grow, and adapt, and knows that they are going to continue to get better only by reflection. And that's who I want on my team.
Yeah, I agree. I think that growth mindset is critical. For me, it's all about attitude and personality. Those are key things as far as finding the right person. So now you've got some other books that you mentioned earlier, Sales Mixology and Shock Your Potential, that are coming out this year. Talk to us about those books.
So Sales Mixology is fun. This is something that has been many, many years in the works for me. Actually, about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I started a blog called A Cocktail a Day. And it was about cocktails, because I love wonderful cocktails, but it was only about cocktails where the experience matched the beauty and the taste of the cocktail. I'm a firm believer that the customer experience is the defining factor in business potential today. And yes, you have to have a great product without doubt, and you have to have great service, but the experience is what will help people cross boundaries. So in other words, how do you retain in a world where we're losing brick and mortar stores? Well, if you walk into a clothing store and the clerk behind the counter is on her phone, and she barely looks up to say, "Hi, how can I help you today? What are you looking for?" And she doesn't make me feel welcome, why would I spend time or money in that store?
Absolutely.
And so I kind of bridge this question with my main character, who has an amazing experience in a cocktail lounge in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and uses that to really craft a whole dialogue on what I call the blend philosophy in creating excellent customer experiences. So it's been very, very fun to write. I've had this in me for a long time, and I'm very excited to let it out. And then the second book, called Shock Your Potential, which is my business platform, takes one of the characters from that book and talks about what I call my 8 steps to shocking your potential. And the fun of that, the meat of that, comes from using the letters in the word shock to describe the different ways that you can achieve your potential. That has to do with whether or not you stand out from your competition, how you hone your skills and find the gaps that you have and bridge them, how you operate on a day-to-day basis that leads towards your potential. The C is for cultivate people and opportunities that help get you there and keep you there. And the K is for know your worth, know your value. And when you operate with those principles, and there's a couple other elements of that, including having an accountability partner that person who's your truth speaker, the person who will help you to look in the mirror when you don't want to look in the mirror clearly and say, I love you, you're a great person, but here's where you're off track, then those are the pieces that will help you not only achieve your potential, but maintain your potential.
That's great. And so what are the release dates for those books?
So the Sales Mixology is going to be out September. I think we're targeting September 9th right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Shock Your Potential is either going to come out in December or January. I have it written but not edited yet, and I haven't decided whether or not I want to make it the end of the year release or the beginning of the new year. So that's kind of one of those, do I start out the new year with a bang or do I end with a bang?
There you go.
All right. Excellent. So how can our listeners get a hold of your current book? Tell me more.
Absolutely. Check it out on, just look on Amazon and look up Tell Me More by Michael Sherlock. There's a couple books that are called Tell Me More, but if you write Tell Me More Sherlock, you'll find it. And but you can also go to my website, shockyourpotential.com, and that has a link to the book right there on that. And I don't think I have a link on my shockyourpotentialpodcast.com. I think I need to update that. Probably something else I need to update. But that's probably the easiest way. And then when my other books release, they'll be on my website as well as on Amazon.
All right.
Excellent.
Fantastic. So I'm watching this episode of Good Morning America. And I'm watching, and then Robin Roberts, one of the hosts,
Yeah.
she says, hey, Michael, why don't you stand up and show us your shoes? Oh, we just love Michael. Yeah.
Wow.
So how did you
She is
form this
somebody.
relationship where you're on a first name basis with Robin Roberts and Good Morning America?
Well, and actually, I have another episode, and I just haven't put it up because I didn't want to be bragging too much, but I do have another one where I actually got the microphone. She gave me the microphone too, so
nice.
I got to. I've been on camera a couple times. It's been very great.
Nice.
It's one of those, the C in my Shock Your Potential for cultivate people and opportunities. I think it's really important that we're always looking for ways that we can make connections that are valuable. And I put in my visioning, it's about 10 years ago, that I wanted to meet Robin Roberts, Diane Sawyer, and Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh, wow.
So far I've met one. One of the three.
Wow.
But I've always been really impressed with her, with Robin Roberts. She's just this, not only just because I've seen her health battles and the way she's handled that, but I've been so impressed to watch her career and how she, has moved from position to position and really been a trailblazer in many, many ways. So about 2 years ago, about close to this time, I was in New York, and I had tried to get tickets to see Good Morning America, and I was on the wait list, and I couldn't go see him. And I was in New York for a couple days, and so the morning that I was hoping I was going to get there, I'm sitting in my hotel room, and I see that Reese Witherspoon's on, and they're having this great interview, and I'm like, oh, God, I really wish I would have been there. So I was new to tweeting. I was new to Twitter. I'm learning how to tweet, right? So I tweet out to Robin Roberts and Reese Witherspoon and say, gosh, I was so hoping to be in the audience and didn't make it. I was on the wait list. Hope next time. So about an hour later, I'm talking to somebody, and my phone, makes a little beep sound. I look down, and it says, you can tell Robin Roberts liked my comment or liked my tweet. And I'm like, oh, my God, that's so exciting.
Wow.
Next thing I know, she messages, or she replies and says, hey, next time, hopefully we'll see you next time you're in town. Make sure to come by and see us. And I was so excited. So about 1 minute after that, Robin Roberts started following my Twitter feed.
Wow.
And I went, whoa, she has over 1 million followers, but she only follows about 1,000 people. So I'm like,
Wow.
She actually had to look at my stuff and make a decision, right?
Yeah.
So then I could message her. So I sent her a message and said, thank you so much. I'm so honored. And long story short, she sent me the email of her assistant and said, whenever you want to come back, just email her and let her know. And that has led me, every time I go to New York, I go and see the show. So yeah, they love my shoes. They love my hair. I'm on a first name basis with her and Michael Strahan. And I've got more pictures of them, hugging me. It's great. They're fabulous. Everything you've ever wanted to believe in them, about them, is all true. They're just amazingly great people. But
Amazing.
It's not only led to that, it's led to some really great friendships, including with a gentleman named Eddie Luisi, who's a stage manager for Good Morning America, and he's been the stage manager for 32 of the 40 years of the show. I interviewed him on my podcast, and that's actually led to some really amazing opportunities for me, just knowing them all. And it's continuing to evolve. They're great, great people. But it's one of those things where opportunity, you can wait for it to happen. You can try to make it happen. You can hope that it's going to happen. But the question is, are you really making steps to try and cultivate those people and opportunities that will make a difference to you, but that are also authentic to who you are? And so it's just been a really great, great opportunity for me. She's a wonderful person, and she's really done a number of great things to help me and boost my confidence as well.
Absolutely.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Michael, you also said that you like someone else that you quoted earlier. And it was actually from one of her first Oscar speeches, and I think you need to tweet Sally Field.
Oh, that's probably true.
We do like you. I heard that earlier.
Yes, I'm sure she's gotten that a lot too. You're right.
These guys have no idea what I'm talking about.
Sally Field, that's the Flying Nun, right?
The Flying Nun, her first Oscar speech when she won it, she
Exactly.
said, "You really like me. You really like me."
Right.
Michael quoted her.
That's
Absolutely.
cool.
Good catch on that one.
That's cool.
I'm a huge fan.
That's just really,
Excellent.
that's just really cool how, with social media now, how
Right.
you can just kind of reach out and touch, and how that was just a great example of that, of how you just, you tweeted, I guess that's the right term, tweeted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
Robin, and you got a response back, and that was kind of the beginning of, some engagement and opportunities and what have you. So just that wasn't there 20 years ago.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like if you
Well, and it's really a part of, everything that I do on social media. Not that I'm good at it, not that I have a lot, not that I have a whole bunch of followers, but at my whole premise, my core belief is that I only message things that are positive. There's plenty of negative stuff in this world, but I'm apolitical online. I am only about positive. I never have anything is anything other than positive stories. And I think that's, to my belief, I don't know for sure, but she had to look at what I did to make a decision to follow me. And I'm confident that because of how she views positivity in this world, that at least what I had, was appealing to her. It was definitely not offensive. And so it's about the choices that we make and the kind of people and business persona that we want to project that will also provide opportunity for us or take it away. And I think it's really important. In fact, I ask my teams, anyone who works with me and for me, I can't force them, but I ask them to operate the same way in their social media platforms, is that I want to be apolitical. I don't want to be fighting people. I don't want to have divisive words or statements. I want us to be about bridging gaps wherever we can, because that's how I know I want to make a difference in this world.
it's amazing that you say that. It's every now and then on Facebook, you'll have something that'll pop up that you posted like 5 years ago or something, and you look at it and you're like, what was I even talking about, right? But I never say anything that's negative, but it's just like, that just sounds really funny. Like, what was I thinking? Like, if someone were to put something negative and it pops back up 5, like you were arguing with someone and saying a bunch of negative things, it pops back up 5. What was wrong? What was that all about, right?
Exactly.
So
what was I thinking?
That's right.
And Michael, you bring up a great point, and I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs, business people that I've had to have multiple conversations with to say, stay out of the political posts. No matter what your position is, you're going to irritate 50% or more of the and you just never know. Like,
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, Robin Roberts could be looking at their profile
Right.
and see something that
Right.
she doesn't agree with, and you just missed out on an opportunity.
You're right. The rule never changes.
Yes.
Politics and religion, don't touch it.
Yeah, exactly. Go have that argument, when you're having dinner with your
Yeah.
friends, if you want to.
Exactly.
I still actually don't like to. I don't choose to. But if you're going to do it in an environment that is at least as private as you can be. Otherwise, accept the consequences that come with that, and it may be a negative impact on your business.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, this has been an amazing episode. So we end this episode where everyone goes around the horn, right? And everyone just kind of leaves the audience, the listeners, with a closing thought to think about. So, Michael, we'll start with you. What's a closing thought or final thought you'd want our listeners to remember?
Boy, you have to start with me. I'm the guest.
We'll swing it the other way and we can end with her. Start with Pam.
Hey, start with me. I'm always ready.
Go,
Let's
baby,
see.
go.
My takeaway was Michael's believe in yourself.
Yes.
At that halfway point, believe in yourself so that you can actually change the narrative of your situation and be successful.
Believe in yourself so you can change the narrative. Absolutely.
Wasn't that a part of the Wizard of Oz? When you started that, believe in yourself right from the start. Just click your Michael shoes together,
Michael,
and there's no place like home. Isn't that?
Yep, that was actually in there.
That's right.
I didn't know that.
That's right.
All right. Good. Now that's great. Ted?
Everything around the cultivating people and opportunities. I thought that really
Yes.
kind of stuck with me, and then just the whole name, shock your potential,
Mhm.
right? It's just like that makes me think like, okay, I'm gonna do shock my potential. I'm gonna, what do I do to take the company to another level, the next level? What do I do to finally start this book that I've been trying to get going forever? I guess so just. Again, shock your potential. I think that's just a great name. It just says so much in just a couple words. So this has been definitely a very motivating discussion for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you have real cool hair. I just didn't know.
Oh, God,
I've
yes.
been holding that the whole time.
Oh,
I was
goodness,
just
yes.
I was like, man, it's like really cool, really cool hair. I need to meet her. The next time you're in town in the DC area, you have to come in. We got to do this in person.
Hey, wait, you guys are in DC, right?
Yes, we're
On September 20th, I'm doing a workshop in DC called Shock Your Potential.
Cool
There you go.
beans.
All right.
There you go.
So can we squeeze some time to get a face to face with you around that time?
I'd say yes, definitely.
Wonderful.
All right.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Wings will be on Eric. Eric will have wings. We do it really big here at the 30-minute hour. So, but you're out in Philadelphia though, right?
Yeah, I'm not too far.
Cheesesteak.
Cheesesteaks for everyone.
Cheesesteak here.
Yeah, cheese sticks will be on Eric apparently.
Thanks, Eric.
That's how that's
Cheesesteaks
gonna
on
go.
Eric.
Right.
I'm in
That's right.
cheesesteaks.
Well, cheesesteak out there in Philly, man. They take this. I went out there one time, man, and just to go get a cheesesteak, and was out there, and man, they just had this container. It's like a paint container, and they got the thing in there, and they just pull out this big cheese whiz, and then put it all over the steak, and I'm like,
that's it.
that's gonna be good going down, but yeah, it's gonna be a show a little later. It's gonna be a show a little
so
later.
come back on you.
That's just
And that's a whole other episode.
Oh, man. TMI from Ted, but I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, because that visual is not going away yet.
You can't unhear that.
Oh,
The
goodness.
visual's still there. I have to see you tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Okay. So, Michael, any final thoughts you wanted to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think the thing that I try and remind everybody is, as we're trying to reach potential, there's always competition. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you're in business, you're competing for that next promotion, you're trying to be the one be the one that people choose. And the question I always ask people is, how do you stand out? What makes you stand out? If you asked a dozen people, would they be able to say what defines you and differentiates you from anyone else, any individual business, the person, down the hall in the office that also wants that promotion? How are people seeing you different? And if you can't answer that immediately, then contemplate what you want them to say, how you want them to see you, and how you want to stand out. Because I do it, yes, with the color of my hair, the name of my business, my title, but those are just physical attributes that are part of me, and they help. They actually really do. They help me stand out in a physical way, which is great. But at the end of the day, people know that I will laugh, that I, have a lot of fun. I deal with really serious stuff, but I do it in a way that's very direct and that has a care and concern at the bottom, but I don't sugarcoat things. And, if I'm going to be the person that somebody trusts with creating and developing a training program for their company, they have to know that I'm going to deal with reality in their business. And they have to know that means that I've got their back at all the times, but I'm not going to let anything go by that will impact it in a negative way. And those are the things that are important to me. So my question to everybody is, what makes you stand out? Is it the way you want to stand out? And if not, what are you going to start doing today and tomorrow to make sure you stand out in the way that you want to be recognized as?
That's great.
Great point. What makes you stand out? What differentiates you from everyone else? Great.
Absolutely.
Okay. So thank you, Michael, for sharing that. And so my around the horn has to do with something, Michael, that you said earlier in our interview. You were at a point in your career where you had to pivot. And I thought that was profound. And I think we have to be willing to pivot. We talked earlier about, hey, it's halftime. And it's very easy to get married to something, an idea that's not good, that's not working, that's not producing, that's not leading us to that potential outcome. So I think we always have to be willing to pivot. Doesn't mean you have to throw everything out and start from scratch all the time.
Change is tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Right. We get married to our ideas. We think, hey, I got to stay with this no matter what. But sometimes you have to make a slight pivot in a different direction, and that can get you to your goal. So that stood out to me when Michael said that. And she's pivoted to the point where she's speaking around the world. So, yeah. So tell us really quick, Michael, some of the countries you've spoken in.
Oh, gosh. Ireland, Denmark, Canada. Just like I said, I just got back from Singapore and Bangkok, which was phenomenal, although I don't know what time zone I'm on right now.
It's Thursday of last week, Michael.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. But I think what to me is so wonderful is that in the last couple positions that I had, I was given the opportunity to work with my global partners I can't even tell you how many different countries, different Scandinavian companies, Portugal, Australia, New Zealand, obviously Denmark, I always said that. Gosh, I can't even think of them, I'm too tired. But the opportunity to interact with people from all over the globe to realize a couple things. Number one, no matter where we are and how different some things may be, we're all humans, so we're very, very much alike at our core. And as long as we respect each other and we take time to learn and ask questions about anyone, anywhere that's different than who we are or that we think we are, we will find bridges that will allow us to communicate and connect in deeper ways that have more meaningful impact. And to me, the fun thing is speaking in Ireland, for instance, my group wanted to tell me how I didn't understand, how this was going to impact the people that are Irish and what Irish people were. And I said, tell me more. Let's role play. I'll be, throw everything hard at me, and we'll test my own theory. And if I can't make it work, no problem. And we got all done. And the guy was laughing at me because he goes, you know what? I guess maybe the Irish aren't that different. And I said, as long as we understand that we're talking about humans, and I want to operate with potential in human capital, how we connect and how we communicate. It doesn't matter where you're from as long as we respect each other. And we walked away from that, and to me, that was one of the greatest successes, was just getting people to understand, I'm not trying to change you, I'm trying to get us to communicate better. When we do that, we have better results.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
That's powerful. Okay. Well, definitely, we want to thank Michael Sherlock for being on the 30-minute hour
Thank you.
podcast.
Yeah.
This is a long 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Right.
This is a 90-minute, 30-minute hour.
It's a 30-ish, hour-ish podcast.
See, Michael, you have to factor the ish in.
Yeah.
You got to factor that in.
That was the hour.
Right, there you go.
The ish.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help. That was just too good.
She's watching her clock.
Like, this is
They keep asking questions.
the longest episode ever. All right. So for everyone, be sure to get her book, Tell Me More. Be sure to listen to her podcast at shockyourpotentialpodcast.com. Again, keep in mind, this is not your everyday podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube by typing in the 30-minute hour. We are now going to let Michael go.
That's right. Because it's probably 2 in the morning where Michael is.
That's right.
Next Thursday.
That's right.
Next Thursday.
Last Thursday.
Next Thursday.
So until next time,
We appreciate it.
have a great one.
All right.